as someone who has been following AI, like many of you, since it came out. I've also been teaching 30 years. I dye my hair gray just to give me some veritas. And so I am the SIS faculty coordinator for teaching and student learning in addition to being a faculty member. And I think about student learning all the time. So I do a lot of workshops for CFE, which is the Center for Faculty Excellence, used to be the Center for Teaching, Research, and Learning. And so that's what I want us to do right now, which is to really think about our students' learning. Not to think about teaching, think about our students' learning. Not to think about efficiency and the values of the business world, but to think about student learning. And in that sense, and we've heard some absolutely fantastic presentations today about how to incorporate AI into our courses, ending with, a robot that might even replace us, okay, or certain complement us. And I was thinking about it and reflecting on it. And what I've seen more is the people who've jumped right into AI, right? They've just jumped into this world. And so, how many of you, when you go to the ocean, you jump right into the water? How many of you walk slowly into the water? All right, so I'm with those people who walk slowly into the water, but I do get into the water. And so that's what I've done for today, which is to think about how we can use AI walking slowly into the water. And I've prepared for you a 12-page handout. Didn't know how to get it to you, so I decided to go old school. And here's a clipboard with a sign-up sheet if anyone is interested, and I will email you the handout because it's got too many hyperlinks. It's really the value in a lot of ways is the hyperlinks. So just pass that around. You can send it out later, but if anyone wants it right away, I'll show it. So here's what's in my handout, okay? It's this 12-page handout. And I offer general guidance on AI and student assignments. The focus is really on assignments. Then the second part is actual examples of AI and assignments to enhance learning. The third section is on AI literacy, assignments for AI literacy. And the fourth section is one we haven't heard much about. And so in that sense, I think this is my value added to this conference, which is what about those who want to create a learning environment where they don't want their students to use AI? And what do we need to do if we want to have a learning environment that either limits or discourages the use of AI? And I will just tell you this, I'll give you one of the punchlines now, which is all of it requires more work for us. I wish it was something else. All right, so, but let's just start, which is to say that for me, it's always about, when you're with an assignment, how can a student use AI and demonstrate learning, right? How can I assess the student's learning? And this requires very clear instructions. We've heard this from others. It requires trust, which we've heard from the students. And it requires the trust between the professor and the student, because the students have to document where they've used AI use. And what we just heard from one of the co-guide students is that the disclosure form doesn't work, right? So we still have some thinking to do here. All right, so because the other thing is I think it's really important to message that using AI is not cheating. But we have to set up those parameters so that the students aren't having this feelings of anxiety because they think they're cheating. All right. So the first thing is and I think this is not the right group to talk to about this, but I've talked to a lot of faculty in other places. There are faculty who still don't have policies on AI, right? And maybe some of it, that fits for some of us. But it's really important that we have a policy because so many students have, 4 or 5 courses, and so they have to navigate these different policies. And they can do it, as Allison Thomas has reminded me. But but we need to be explicit, right? When do we allow AI and when do we not allow AI? And I really encourage faculty to think about it in terms of the task. Which task? Because AI can do everything. Is it allowed to? Do we allow it for brainstorming? Well, in my course, the brainstorming is the most important part. So no. What pieces of it will you allow it for? And I think Michelle this morning did a really nice job in terms of her CP course or complex problems course about how to use it at different stages. All right. Leon Furs has a AI assessment scale of 1 to 5. It's in my handout, and so you might want to think about how much AI. Okay. So for me, the bottom line of this, in terms of general guidance, is what is our mission as an institution of higher education? And it is about learning. It's about teaching critical thinking. It's not the value of efficiency. I want my students, I want them to have fun. I want them to learn. It's going to be messy. It's going to take time. And so we need to teach those skills and knowledge about critical thinking. And as we just learned from the panel, it's about how to, in many cases, that's how to interpret AI content, right? AI output. So I think that for me, one of my criticisms, though, of the AI agencies, the technology companies, they have a different mission. And maybe you already know this. It's new. It's fairly new to me, which is I just started studying a little bit about, this. We talk about agentic AI, right? These AI agents. So I don't know if you know this, but your students can create an AI bot, an AI agent, and connect it to the Canvas site, and then basically program it so that it answers every single homework assignment and assignment that you put on Canvas. And they don't even have to open Canvas for the rest of the semester. I see that as a conflict of interest between the AI companies and us. And so I think that it means we need to be very thoughtful about that. And to me, it's also about transparent. All right. So what are some specific assignments? I'm going to give 3. The the main way that a lot of faculty do it is like they'll say, ask an AI tool, you give them a prompt, you put it into AI, and then you say investigate the veracity of the output, or apply the concepts or tools, the theories of the course, or use these readings. But AI at this point can do that so easily. That's not AI proof, right? If you think it is. The AI basically can do the thinking for the students there. And for me, I always want to know, I want to be able to assess what the students are thinking. So let me mention 3. One is for public policy, an SPA professor. One is from a historian, Max Friedman. And one is from a writing professor at another school, Jason Gula. So Nathan Favaro did this fabulous exercise. He asks the students he put the prompt into an AI tool and then asks them to evaluate the output after they've read the readings he assigns for that class for that week. And they evaluate the output. Next, the following week, he asks them same thing, prompt, reading, but he says, don't do the reading, and I want you to evaluate the AI output. And the students then realize they can't do it very effectively. So that they need certain knowledge, and it's the reflection really that is so important. And so I think it's a great way to use AI. Max Friedman, who's a historian, realized that the students were using AI for his policy memo and assignment, and so he asks them to advise the Secretary of State in 1941 on a foreign policy crisis. And so this time he just put the prompt into AI, and he asked the students to critique the AI output based on the assigned readings and to evaluate its citations. And what they learned was, because they had to put themselves in the time of 1941, AI couldn't do it. AI was using information that it had learned post 1941. So they couldn't actually write the memo, but the students had to do anyhow. So writing Professor Jason Gula, I really like his work. I've seen him at a couple national teaching conferences, and he's just all over the place on AI. And he structures his assignments through this progression, and they're really more process than product. The focus is really on the process, not the product. And he uses a scale of 1 to 5 of how much AI use they are allowed in each step of their project. And his assignment is on my handout, and the idea here is that, and then he has them reflect on it. And the students in their reflections have pointed out that when they use AI, their voice does not come through as clearly, and that upsets them. And so they are able to use it in ways, in each of these cases, they're able to use AI in ways that they can reflect on it. So I have to finish up, but one of the things that I think the value of this handout is what is necessary for creating a context in which students don't want to use AI. And it really comes down to creating a culture of inquiry and of trust, and explaining a lot about why. Why do you want them to do this assignment? What skills are they going to gain? And also, scaffolding helps, because students have said, we've already heard, they use AI because they ran out of time. But it isn't. Extra office hours help. I emphasize to the students, if I'm not allowing them to use AI in an assignment, come see me instead of a bot, and I bring cookies, and we have a lot of fun. And so, and just to emphasize, as Naomi Barron, who used to be the director of CTRL, emphasized the way in which the process of writing is how we actually learn what we want to say and what we want to think about. So there's a lot of other ways. I think what AI has done is forced us to do what we should have been doing all the time, which is to focus on our pedagogy. And it's forced us to really think about what is the purpose of a college education and the value added and what we can do. So thanks very much for listening. And
we have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions.
Oh yeah, happy to answer questions. So there's a lockdown. I've also written a memo for SIS faculty. I'm happy to share it with anyone. You use a lot of faculty have what they've chosen to do instead is like, I'm not going to deal with this AI stuff. I don't want to deal with cheating. And they do in-class exams and use lockdown browser. And that's fine. But I also think there's a trade-off. Is it consistent with what we want our students to learn? And are we sacrificing our learning outcomes? But if anyone is using lockdown browser and doing in-class exams, I have a memo that I've written that's really actually quite helpful. You will avoid a lot of technical glitches, and it includes even an email you can send to your students. So if you email me, ask me. It's Elizabeth Cohn, C-O-H-N, ecohn@american.edu. I'm happy to send it to you. There's another question. I don't know if we have time.
Just on your last comment about focusing on pedagogy, do you think we need to rethink taxonomy for this era of AI?
Say some more.
Well,
what's behind your question?
Well, memorization, right? The uselessness of memorization, which is at the base of taxonomy. At some point, it becomes kind of pointless. And do we need to think through the entire educational system if we're going to think through pedagogy?
I stopped asking my students to memorize anything when the internet came out.
Right, but it's still there.
I'm happy to talk to any faculty member who wants to think about how they can rethink their teaching if they're still asking students to memorize.
Yeah, I'm thinking
you have an entire, the students, we all have an entire computer in our pockets with the phone.
Yeah, thinking more in terms of layers of learning, right? Scaffolding learning. And do we need to
Bloom's
rethink?
taxonomy.
Do we need to rethink that in an era of AI? Are there layers that are no longer applicable?
I don't know. I have to think about that, but I think that I think that we still, can do the analysis and the more higher conceptual stuff, even and with AI. I didn't get a chance to go through. I have many more assignments on here, but I'm happy to show. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.